Leaders from Kisoro and Rubanda district have raised concerns over the centralization of emergency funds by the government, highlighting delays and insufficient responses to emergencies in their respective areas. The government, through the Office of the Prime Minister in collaboration with the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, currently manages emergency funds aimed at addressing disasters across the country. According to district leaders, the current centralized approach often results in delayed or inadequate responses to emergencies such as natural disasters and other crises. They argue that the process of seeking assistance from the Office of the Prime Minister can be lengthy and bureaucratic, hampering effective response efforts at the local level.
We have written now seeking for emergency funding from the Ministry of Disaster, that is OPM, Office of the Prime Minister. But the only challenge, the biggest challenge we face in this all is that the Prime Minister's office never responds to these ones. We have written several letters, and when they are writing, I told them that as usual, no response. We never get a response.
Stephen Ampeile Kasiaba, the Rubanda District OC5 chairperson, expressed frustration over the lack of timely response from the central government when emergencies occur in their district, emphasized the need for decentralization of emergency funds, asserting that local governments are better positioned to swiftly and effectively address emergencies within their jurisdictions.
The money be put at the district for emergency funding, so that the district can always do an emergency response. The money we are using to help our people now, we are cutting from the district budget, from the money which we are giving, do another planning, but we said we fuel our machines, we pay allowances to go and open up some roads, to go and open up water channels, all that have been blocked, to go and restore our people. We have created an emergency response center at Mukahele Center for the people who are coming there, those who have been hit by the landslides. But I can assure you, as the district chairperson, if I was going to wait for OPM to send me fuel, we shall have lost extremely the whole entire of the sub-county, the whole entire of Nyamoro sub-county. My advocate is, we should forget about these selfish statements by government. They must bring the money for emergency funding to the lower local government, because that's where the disaster is taking place. The disaster is not at OPM's office, the disaster is at lower local government. The disaster is in Rubanda, disaster is in Kabale, disaster is in Ududa. They send the money to the district lower local government to mitigate this emergency.
Similarly, Abel Bismana, the Kisoro District OC5 chairperson, highlighted the vulnerability of their district to natural disasters, especially during the rain season. He cited instances of damaged roads, destroyed crop gardens, and loss of lives due to lack of sufficient resources and capacity at the local level to respond effectively.
The climate change issues. Kisoro has issues of having the most fertile soils, volcanic soils, the most beautiful hills, valleys, lakes, and swamps, but also it is a place so prone to catastrophe of disasters, especially the natural disasters of rain. Right now, as I speak, most of the roads are being blocked every now and then, that we can hardly have an open road for 2 days, but the capacity to remove those mudslides, landslides as a district is too small. I would propose, like we have been responding to such issues in the northern Uganda and Ududa, we need a booster stimulus of funding and response.
These district leaders have called for a shift towards decentralization, advocating for emergency funds to be allocated directly to local governments. They believe that empowering local authorities with resources and decision-making authority will enhance preparedness and response capabilities, ultimately safeguarding lives and livelihoods in vulnerable communities.
So one of the areas I'm encouraging is having the local government participation. One, now currently the state of the policy is that 100% of response to disaster will be done by Office of the Prime Minister, and that's where they put money. But when we get such a disasters, like people dying in large numbers or things destroyed, crops, property, Office of the Prime Minister 100% fails to respond. Even when they respond, it's like in piecemeal. It's like they have just shopped something and throwing it to us. It's not actually a response. The disaster policy, we should decentralize some of the roles. At least 40% of disaster response funding should come to districts, because they are the ones who first-hand get into contact with the catastrophe, with the degradation, with death, with all those forms of disaster and impacts. It is local governments that suffer with them.
Due to its hilly terrain, the Kigezi sub-region is prone to disasters related to climate change. Recently, in Kisoro district, about 10 people were lost due to a mudslide, resulting in the destruction of crops and houses. Last week, in Rubanda district, specifically in Butare Katojo Town Council, 3 people lost lives due to heavy rains, which also destroyed approximately 15 houses, leaving the locals stranded. A story by John Anamara, Robert Nyamachi for Kigezi TV.
So, this office, surely of OPM, must be given money. I sympathize with them when we call them and we hear the officers say, you see, there's nothing in the stores. You see, we can give you, maybe let's give you buckets. But we don't need buckets. The response should be in tandem with the situation on the ground.